welcome to the ReZero podcast. I'm your host, Wolf.
I'm your host, Gold.
I'm your host, Connor, and the purpose of my creation has been fulfilled.
Indeed it has. The purpose of my creation has indeed been fulfilled.
Mine hasn't. Sorry, boys.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yes, you shall now complete your purpose.
yeah, your purpose in life.
Your Watashi.
Watashi purpose in life.
That's extra deep because I have the Subaru model. Dun dun dun.
Well, you're here to. What was the quote? Something about stopping the. He says something about stopping her. It's real dramatic. How it is.
I'll be the one that kills you, Sphinx.
Yeah, he pretty much says that.
I'll stop your great disaster.
Yep, pretty much.
Let's see if that survives its way into the light novel and anime.
Yeah.
And this phase is another one that's just been, I was super excited to get to and talk to you because we got some major lore reveals, and one of the biggest ones that I can't believe it took this long to finally just explain and spell out in the text. Priscilla and Abel are brother and sister. Who would have fucking thought?
Yeah, that was a big reveal. I couldn't have guessed that.
That's crazy.
One's a redhead and the other is a black-haired. How could they possibly be related?
Yeah, that's weird. Anyways,
the Valachian Emperor marries multiple women or anything.
Yeah. And I guess Echidna's back too. That's
yeah.
something.
Well, don't worry about that.
Ew.
We're not going to be talking about that too much today. Here's the truth, though. Technically, that was never spelled out in the text, right?
I think it was when Subaru wasn't there.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Arakia brought it up to Priscilla.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. All I know is that we, of course, read the EX novels, and that was explicitly said there.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on, it's obvious.
It's obvious. Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, the moment Subaru. Priscilla, you knew, I think it's in our early Arc 7 podcasts, Wolf, that you had just came up with the theory. It's are these two related?
Oh,
they've gotta be, right?
Think about how far we've come.
Yeah.
Almost explicitly.
We didn't even know that Priscilla was going to be in there. That's when you shut up.
Yeah,
there's for anybody.
But there's a lot to cover for this phase. A lot of different individual fights going on, and almost every single one of them has something either really interesting to show about the characters or revealing about the story.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very much so. I mean, contrary to our last recording in which we had very few things that we needed to focus on, here I think we had to focus on everything pretty much equally.
Yeah, Agreed.
So I want to start with one of the easier ones that I think is just the most fun, and we can kind of just go almost fight to fight, scene to scene, not scene to scene through the chapters, but
but fight like
location to location.
Yeah.
And I want to start with the Roswell and Medium one, particularly for Medium, because I know that the two of you and I both really enjoy her character, and it's finally revealed that she has the divine protection of hype.
Oh yeah, that's true. She's a hype beast. That's really an interesting reveal. I totally didn't expect that. And to be fair, Medium is your favorite character here, right? I think one of your favorite characters at the very least.
One of, yeah. I really like her, and I really like Abel a lot. Just full stop.
Yeah. So knowing this probably the entire time we've been reading, honestly, it's one of those things where, again, they don't really. I mean, Medium probably doesn't even know it, right? It said that in text.
Yeah,
yes.
It's that she is completely unaware that this is true.
It's another one of those divine blessings that are very fun when they don't know that it exists, because it's something that you as a reader couldn't really see, but it makes sense, but it feels almost beforehand you could interpret a lot of her power to just, I don't know, plot, gung-ho convenience, you know what I mean?
It turns what previously felt not lazy writing, but just I'll call it easy writing of just she feels better and fights better when people are cheering her on. We were joking of it's classic shonen shit. And then it's enough here to say that that has been true the whole time. Here's the in-world reason why that's actually true and has been happening. And I really like when Tappei does that.
Yeah, me too. It's so fun. It really does feel to me like he was like, okay, I'm just gonna, I'm a troll. I love to do my comedy, so I'm gonna make this character this way, and I'm just gonna drop that this is how they do it and the mechanism of how they do it just randomly in their name chapter later on, just because I can.
It's great. I think one of the things that name chapters tend to do is they tend to infer information that even the person that your perspective is unaware of. It's like their book in the Name of the Dead.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But like for
Rem's name chapter showed that the actual truth of what she was believing wasn't necessarily the same. That she was seeing people thinking lesser of her when that wasn't entirely true with her parents and Rom.
Mm-hmm. It's just her perspective.
As well as it being like her fault. Yeah. And so here we get it from mediums of just, the truth of the matter for all of it, which I think is it's really sweet. I have a lot of respect for medium, as well as just for being able to go through with this and showing off that she can deflect these bullets with her blades at light magic speed.
Yeah.
Incredibly cool. I love their combo here.
It's pretty impressive, and I think one of the things is, I, as the person with Roswell's avatar, can say, I think, this sort of side of the character is very interesting. I think him and Medium getting together on this mission is something I never would have guessed, but it does offer a very, I would say, unique perspective in the fight that I think, it's another edge to this battle going on, which is, we'll get to like Medium stuff in a moment, her feelings towards it, but Roswell's feelings towards it is interesting because he comes at it from the perspective of a magician, and this
like
is
a tactician.
A tactician and a magician, because this arc emphasizes a whole lot, or these chapters emphasize a whole lot how there's like a subtle lore building here, how truly special it is to be able to wield the magic that Roswell is able to wield, as well as what Balroy is even doing in the first place.
Balroy's use of magic through all this, just as a quick aside, is just really creative, manipulation of magic and world building that Tape is doing, like bending the light around his eyes to turn it into an effective scope, is such a cool idea. I'm stealing it for everything in D&D in the future.
There's 100%. A lot of really cool stuff like that in this arc.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break your train of thought. Just I wanted to add that in before I forgot it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And honestly, like, all that is to say that, like, he is interpreting a lot of what Balroy's doing is like, this man, his magical capability is pretty much just on a realm below mine. Like, he's doing application of magic that even I didn't think of doing, And if it wasn't for the fact that he was content with being, like, once given the name of a divine general, his willingness to strive for greater heights of magic kind of stopped there. But if it didn't, he could have exceeded him in some ways. I think that was an interesting note by Roswell.
Yeah, for sure. I also appreciate his insight into like Julius's guidance towards him in the fight as well.
Yeah.
100%. I think Julius's magic, is interesting because, like, Roswell talks about it here, and he's like, this magic that Julius can do is something that I can't do. I have a capability of doing most types of magic, right, and combining them, but I can't do it all at once, and it's only because of how well synchronized Julius is with all of his spirits that he's able to, do impossible feats of magic that no other magician could ever hope to be able to, create.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
yeah.
It's shown in this battle, right? Like, when he replicates Julius's technique, he has to strain his gate to do it, which is insane as a concept. Roswell straining his gate to do something.
Yeah, because like straining his gate is what led to Subaru getting completely destroyed and having to go to Felix in Arc 3 in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like he overdid it. So Roswell having to pull off the same, effort in that regard to someone who's never used magic before overdoing it is, I mean, it just speaks to how successful and, well, Roswell put it best, how in sync with all of his spirits that Julius is.
Yes.
And I mean, in the animation, Alclosseria, I think, is just like one of the most gorgeous moves in the series.
Oh, for sure.
I love all of his rainbow attacks so much.
It's one of the coolest ones. He says like "scatter to the rainbow's edge."
Yes.
Like there's like really cool lines like that, and I think Alclosseria, I mean, like as they put it in this chapter, is that it is the concept of like reality, like the things that make up reality coming at you all at once. Like there is
the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah. It is every form of, like matter creation. It's like true magic in a way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if he had a way to focus that magic, I bet you he could do crazy things with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
absolutely. I mean, imagine like his spirits evolved once in Arc 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Imagine if like later on they evolve again to be like not quite greater spirits, but maybe have a form of some kind.
Oh my god.
And that they can actually start thinking for themselves alongside of him, and just the insane level of things that he could pull off with that.
Like, he has so much potential, right? And
yeah.
But that makes me worried for him as a character. And not in terms of writing, I mean in terms of his safety potentially in the future. And I don't know, I feel like this basically like kind of comes out of left field. But in terms of just the power and potential that Julius has to really help everyone and all of especially Subaru in the future of the story, I feel like that's going to be a threat that may be snuffed out by some antagonists. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I feel like that could happen very reasonably.
Well, it's that, or they just leave him on the sidelines like they did this whole phase, and he basically had like one tiny moment and then nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, he's definitely going to have more scenes in the future.
Yeah.
I think there's quite obvious moments where he's going to be able to shine, whether it's with Anastasia or with his brother or with whatever, like with the kingdom's defense. Like, I think those are parts that he's going to have to rise to the occasion for. And we'll see when that happens in the future. This obviously wasn't about him for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting almost when they were building it up that they were going to rehash a bit of this thing about Belroy. They kind of did in a way, but through this sort of.
In like 4 sentences too. They recapped everything important from that whole book.
Exactly.
Julius blinded him with a wave of giant light. It was really cool, and he got him killed.
Yeah. Great. But also, one of the things I want to say about Roswell again is that him without makeup, even just seeing it like depicted in art, it's so uncanny almost.
Seeing Dudley is weird.
Yeah, he's like a different person entirely. You know what I mean?
Imagine when we get a whole core of that with him like that too in full animation.
That's gonna be so weird.
It's just funny to see somebody who is just very much so agreeable and even keeled, and you get the villain Roswell, and then you have this Roswell. You know what I mean? And it seems like Roswell still is like searching to like better himself in like all aspects. Here, he's like genuinely admiring his opponent, and he's working hard to do stuff.
I mean, well, we'll discuss the other side of this more later on, but it does tie into Sphinx's whole existence as like this product of Echidna and not being able to progress herself well in any like meaningful manner. That when Roswell was still holding on to that fragment of Echidna through the Tome of Wisdom, he had no real progression either. And now that that's gone, he finally has that chance to improve and better himself again.
Be the magician he was supposed to be.
Yeah. You know what this arc really is all about? It is what your identity is, finding who that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's getting new identities. Everybody is realizing who they're meant to be. I think that is like, obviously we see it with Subaru in this arc, we see it with Arkia in this arc, we see it with everyone changing their names in a way. We see it with the fact that Vincent was whatever, and Chisha took Vincent's name and all this stuff. All of it, of course, and Priscilla was once Priscilla, like all this, it all is on the back of names, and of course Sphinx here. But like that kind of following itself through very well from arc 6, it makes me respect the fact that it is being explored. It's like when somebody makes a swing with a bat, right? And instead of just like hitting the ball, you have to follow through even with your hips, and it feels like that's what Tepe's doing with these arcs.
It's like it's not like he's building new concepts, he's just expanding the things he's already interwoven, right? Like it's really cool too, because we got this element of that identity and the stuff with the books, and now we have this parallel with the zombies too, right? Of names and who you are as a person being so important, and that being twisted, being set like a thing that's against nature and like sacrilegious almost. It has that element of, oh wow, so when gluttony eats someone's name, it's obviously a terrible thing. Like in the moment, like you're seeing, oh, this is a terrible thing. This is a thing that's against nature when these things happen.
So, right, and it's poetic on that regard, that in order to free them and release them from the spell, you do have to say their name first.
Yes.
I mean, in the mechanics of how they're doing it, but that is how it's all working, which is cool.
Thematically, it all gets tied up in a lovely bow. It just feels so good, right?
Yeah.
And I think what culminates in this feeling so satisfying is Roswell replicating Balroy's spell at the end with the fight.
Yeah, the magic bullet.
Yeah, I feel like that in that showing is like Roswell is using his initiative in ways he's never had before. I feel like even in the narration, it comes across like he's stimulated, right? Like he feels alive for a little bit. Like he's learning.
Because aside from figuring out soul transcription in the post-Echidna area, it's not really implied that he's learned anything since her death until now.
He's kind of running a eugenics program.
Yeah. and we'll talk more about Echidna later, but something that dawned on me, which it might be obvious to all of you guys, but it's something that I thought of just now, is the fact that when Echidna fights Hector, she doesn't die in that scene.
Well, I mean, I think she
Which
does.
Agreed. No, because she goes to Betty's in the library and says, "Yeah, you have to watch over this library from now on."
She leaves Betty in the library and then goes to Roswell, who's holding things off.
No, but doesn't Beatrice go to see Ryuzu in the core of like the thing, and that's where it's like you have to become the core of the sanctuary?
She takes Ryuzu there, and Ryuzu triggers everything going on. I guess you're not wrong for that.
Yeah, she has to survive that fight, like from a.
Because that is when she shows up for there.
So there's a part of me that now thinks that she survived that fight. She then voluntarily underwent stasis, and then everything. It also influenced some machinations here or there, and then went. And she's like, "Okay, I set up all the stuff I need to set up," and then went into the graveyard.
Well, it's that. Or the timeline could be Beatrice says goodbye to Ryuzu, Echidna goes to the core to actually activate the spell, puts Betty into the extra dimensional space that her library exists in, tells her to put it in the mansion, and then walks out the door to go and deal with and help Roswell. That's just a potential time, but regardless, it is still like a little unclear. And that does lead into how did the rumor that the Witch of Envy killed her come about then, in any case.
Yeah. Because that seems like a lie, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, it's 100% a lie.
100%.
Because it said that she consumed her and her body's there.
Her body's there. And then, again, Hector can't destroy her, because I don't think Hector would leave her body all pristine like that, right?
Well, I think we pretty much know that Hector was sealed inside of Roswell.
I don't think so. Roswell's embodying Hector because he sees Hector as the ultimate.
No, but his eyes changing color is pretty sauce. If it's not,
I think that's a reference to him being in his descendants' bodies.
Yeah, I think that's
because he doesn't have the eye thing when he goes and sees Beatrice in the library after the fights.
I think Hector's more related to Klein and whatever the fuck is going with him.
Yeah, I think Klein is what's come about after Hector lost his soul or memories or whatever.
Klein definitely has his authority. I just think it's weird.
Now it is very weird. I think the trauma and how that's affected Roswell has really made him punish himself. I mean, it's even said in Arc 4, right? He punishes himself by being like the man he hates, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's putting it on that guy's face and persona as a form of protection, self-defense.
That's why Dudley here isn't even Roswell. You know what I mean? Yeah. The Roswell, you know, it feels like a more earnest person. You know what I mean?
It's no
like
longer,
all the way through.
It always feels like it's no longer Roswell A. Mathers in Roswell L. Mathers' body. It's Roswell L. Mathers.
Roswell L. Mathers, yeah.
Yeah.
For the first time.
For the first time. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's the interesting part about it.
Yeah. Speaking of earnest people or not very earnest, we could probably move to, I want to say, like the Rowan fights and everything going on over there.
Yeah, we can move on to that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's a funny bit about it. The very interesting is a man who, you know, through his sort of eagerness to try to reach the sword, has finally found a shortcut to power, which is I'm going to make 1 million myself, so even if I die, I can still fight you with my sword.
Yeah,
and it seems like that works to an extent.
I mean, he is getting better each time. He's basically just doing what Al does.
Heavenly sword,
yeah, exactly right. You can actually learn to, you know, I would presume that the height of swordsmanship is reached right when you're about to die. You know what I mean? And you kind of realize your biggest mistake. Here,
the Stargazer direction of reaching the Heavenly Sword had already passed because Cessylus did manage it on his own.
This is all Rowan's ego.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This has nothing to do with him caring about being a Stargazer anymore. You know,
it's not. Someone has to reach the Heavenly Sword. It is possible for me to reach the Heavenly Sword, and I cannot concede that.
I'm going for it.
Yeah. We see the fiendish personality of Rowan through this moment. And it helps later make you feel more sympathetic for Cessylus, and also like you're like, oh yeah, his father was bad to the very end.
I get it, Cessy.
Yeah.
It's like his true colors are coming out, right? Because he's nonchalant about how he treats him and all of that stuff. But when you see this like slimy desperation from him when he's fighting, he keeps on thanking Yorna in this disgusting, greedy way. It's like you see his true colors for like the man who's drunk on his own ego.
Yeah, he's so desperate for his own sense of self-satisfaction and what he wants that even though Rowan doesn't necessarily know this is the case, his attempt to do this is literally bringing the world closer and closer to its destruction by what it's doing to the Earth spirit.
Yeah, if any of this goes through, like it's mentioned over and over again, the moment the capital falls, the rest of the world is finished.
Yeah,
because it's the whole like quarter of the continent.
Yeah,
is going to collapse.
And not only that, all of the divine generals would then become zombies. It all, you know, it's just chaos.
And it's also to put that on top of that as well. I don't know if the other three nations are going to be able to put a good enough of a cooperative front together to be able to fight it off either.
Especially with a witch like Sphinx.
Yeah. Halibel and Julius, all the divine generals, Cessylus, they're all here. It would only be Reinhardt and Wilhelm that can put up any kind of a fight against these things.
Maybe the Mad Prince.
Yeah,
perhaps.
But like Reinhardt stalemates anything like this, but like that's not a life to live. You know what I mean?
That's not how you win.
Reinhardt might lose to Cessylus as a zombie that keeps coming back.
Yeah, 100 Cessylus is replicating them himself.
Let alone Halibel.
Because Reinhardt is stagnant. There's no better. But Cessy has like infinite potential to grow, right? So
supposedly he was a better swordsman and faster than Reinhardt was at his peak.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Reinhardt's Reinhardt.
Reinhardt's Reinhardt, yeah.
Reinhardt has the extracurricular bonuses.
He has the ability to never die. You know what I mean?
Reinhardt's playing on easy mode.
It's not just easy mode. It's like fucking.
He's a hack and slash, and Cecilis is fucking DDR padding a Dark Souls game.
Yeah, 100%. He's on literally Reinhardt's on very easy mode, walkthrough tutorial mode.
Yeah.
And story mode.
Cecilis is like, I'm gonna speed run this game, no hit. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
It really do be like that. Yeah.
No hit, no armor, wrong weapons that don't have the correct stats to use.
Yep, exactly.
Subaru's playing
level 1. No.
I love Kratian horror game.
Yeah, Subaru is soul level 1ing it.
100%. And it comes down to the point where Rowan, in his pursuit to reach where those guys are at, just gets owned eventually.
Yeah, I love that as much as he's trying this. It's literally doing nothing to people who are just that much better than him.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this part later as well, contrasts super heavily to everything going on with Hainkel, who is also completely outclassed, but has a completely different story going on with it.
Yeah, it's good. I think basically the reason why Rowan gets owned, and it's so poetic that it happens this way against Yorna. At first I was like, why Yorna? Now I get it. It's because Rowan he had no love in his heart at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what Topei's trying to show you, is that he was completely ineffectual against the love that Yorna had for Tanza. And Tanza's belief that she was loved. And amplified Yorna's already unimaginable power towards one person even further. And getting into Tanza's backstory a little bit, it's just she was another one of the persecuted demi-humans, right? And she hated the Empire, and she found a way with her sister to Chaos Flame, and in so she was like, there's no way this place actually exists, this place that is like against the Empire and also is able to protect people that are weak, and she found Yorna, and Yorna welcomed her with open arms. And of course that love transferred into her loyalty. And after Tanza's sister died and Yorna raged after that, that loyalty was sort of set in stone. And it kind of, we've seen Tanza's story since then, but that's pretty much the gist of all that occurred there against her persecution.
Also, I feel like her backstory and context now makes me understand a lot more why she was paired with Subaru as a character in a lot of the previous arc, because her quote at the end of this chapter apologies gives me chills, right? Because it's literally, I think, speaking to the heart of this story and the heart of the message for Subaru, which is, she tells Rowan, I'm fighting back because there is a harsh, cruel, but lovely reality that awaits. The world simultaneously can be a horrible and beautiful place, but that doesn't mean you give up on the beautiful element of it, ever. And her story...
You're right, it does speak like the center of the story.
It's just, thematically, it's so resonant, and it just makes so much sense why she has the relationship she has with Subaru, and why I have a feeling that while she loves Yorna a lot, she might actually follow Subaru to wherever he goes in the future.
I think that
could potentially happen. I do think.
Yeah, it's possible. I do wonder how much all these Vlakian characters are going to follow through for the rest of the story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's parts of me that think that there's a lot of characters that have potential to go beyond just this part of the story, and I wonder where or when. You know what I mean? There might be a few characters that literally are like, okay, they're in the next phase, the arc. I don't know who those would be, obviously, but like,
well, let me ask you both this then. Do you think it will really help with the whole, like, Tanza hates the Empire, Subaru hates the Empire, half the people who followed him from Gladiator Island hate the Empire and the way that it works? If he just brings all the people who hate it out of the Empire, that doesn't really fix anything.
No.
Because they're not going to be around to change it anymore.
But to be fair, Abel is probably the one who hates the Empire the most, as revealed in this phase, right? So, and Abel's the one who's going to be at the apex of the Empire. So the one who hates it the most is going to be the one that will be most...
Yeah, but he's always hated the way that it works, and there not being other people that he can work with to accomplish that led to him getting ousted from the throne.
I feel like that's also why characters like Flop may stay behind in Wallachia, Medium. Right?
Yeah, obviously, I think so.
Well, yeah, I mean, Medium's engaged to him.
Yeah. But what I mean is, I think there's a plenty of pool of characters that's gonna be there for him. But I do think at least his Subaru's core battalion of his Pleiades boys and maybe Tanza will probably go back to the kingdom with him.
I will say,
Mancer, indeed.
Yeah.
The question that I was kind of asking you more or less implicitly is the fact that a lot of them are going to stay behind because they have a duty to Wallachia. Who's going to not stay behind because they find out through this arc that they actually have no duty to their position or whatever? Something that I'm kind of thinking about.
Yeah, it's a good thought.
Yeah. Anyways, we're talking about Rowan does get owned. He gets slapped really hard by Tanza.
Yeah.
You just your sword gets broken in half by a little antler girl. Get owned, I guess.
Yeah. Also, you fucking deserve it, you piece of trash. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Rowan is one of those characters that you can't help but detest. Like, he's entertaining to read, don't get me wrong, but I hate this man.
You never root for him.
Never.
It's not like a Walter White situation where even though he's awful, you're still kind of like, I still want to see him do stuff. You want to see Rowan lose.
You really can't understand his perspective at a certain point. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a end to it. You know what I mean? At a certain point, you go past the line. You can reflect that you went past the line, but then you're like, actually, I'm all right with that. And that's Rowan. You know, he realized that he messed up really hard with Cessy, but he still did this. So at that point, somebody has to, you make your bed, you lie in it.
I think the other thing, right, is that if you really think about it, all of the fucked up things Rowan did to achieve the Heavenly Sword, he never had to really do any of those to do that, if you think about it.
It was all his ego.
Yeah, it was all his ego. If he had just...
Because he thought it had to be him.
Yeah. If he just had been a loving father and had all of his kids be alive, Cessy would have still been born one day. That would have still happened. Like, I don't think that necessarily would have changed that.
Yeah.
At least
he's a freak talent.
Fate is working in this world, at least.
Yeah, his Stargazer stuff still would have pulled him to create, like, that's what it was pulling towards the entire time.
Yeah, but
it had to be him and his ego to push him.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
just part of it, obviously. That's just how fate works,
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing of, because of, like, even if he's bound by it, that doesn't necessarily mean he has to surrender being a father or being a human being.
I mean,
Cessy doesn't surrender who he is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that's the problem with the rest of the Stargazers that we've seen in the story too, like Ublik and Tarita's soul sister. You don't have to surrender your entire being to fate to even be a Stargazer.
Yeah.
Why I hold to what I said last time. The Stargazers, like most of the ones we've seen, are genuinely just pathetic people.
Yep.
And
they're bullshit.
No sympathy for them.
And they really don't recognize the position that they're in. You know what I mean? And I think, like, obviously Subaru has been detesting fate. This whole arc, the past whole arc, it's all very obvious that he is aware of the truth of the matter, which the Stargazers cannot comprehend, which is fate is mutable, and it starts with every action that you do. You can only control what you can control. You know what I mean?
That's what makes him the sage candidate. He has that wisdom that a lot of others do not have.
Yeah, I think so.
And the potential to grow that wisdom further.
It's part of who he is.
Tanza's backstory is just really, really well written. It fits with the themes of this arc, but also the arc of the story so far so well. I feel like it really complements all of it really well, and I think showing Rowan this way, and then as we'll talk about more later with Hainkel, contrasting it with him, it makes Hainkel's story a better story too. Rowan is a great character that enhances all of the character stories around him by being the asshole that he is.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Forgive me if I'm remembering this wrong. Amelia takes over the fight with him at some point, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
She jumps in and helps save Tanza.
And then Tanza powers up with the soul magic.
And Tanza powers up. Yep.
Okay.
How it goes. She has a flashback and then she powers up.
Has a Vietnam flashback.
Yeah. That's just how it goes. You know, we're in anime territory.
Yep.
Remember your past and you power up. And it has a mechanical reason for it too, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It makes sense in universe, and this is a thing I'll give to Pave, right? Like, he's so good with this consistency of like why things work the way they do in the universe.
Yeah, it's with this with Tanza and then this with Medium, and it's they both have the shonen power up moments. And then next, we could talk a little bit about Garf and Miseria.
Oh yeah. Just out of the gate, I don't know if this is a commonly held belief or if I'm in the minority amongst most of the community here, but his chapter of just like imagining himself in the theater and seeing all the people and their impacts on him, it's genuinely one of my favorite chapters in all of 7 and 8. I thought it was so well done.
Oh, it's so imaginative.
It's so cool.
I think it's really smart because all the characters, the perspective of it is so perfect. Like the way that it's kind of confusing and you're like, how does this happen? And then like the payoff of it is very funny of like, how long has it been? It's only been 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, wow, thanks for holding it off the entire time. He's like, no, the dragon's just been staring at us.
Thanks, Pops.
Yeah. But yeah, like that scene is super good for a plethora of reasons because it is the perspective of a dream of a character who he emits by himself, of course, through Ram's voice, that he is not imaginative enough to have a deep enough dream to, you know, understand exactly what's going on until he slowly pieces together that no, the point is that all these people believe in him despite the fact that he is just a one note punch a guy type of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That he has grown from all these different people. They all have had a unique impact on him. And even though he is just the giant shield brawler for their group, that doesn't mean that is all that he is.
Exactly. And
that shows that Hainkel doesn't have to only be that either.
And he has so many people around him that cares about him, and it's really that moment in D&D where the dumb barbarian has a really heartfelt moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because but you can extrapolate this to so many characters with this identity theme in these arcs, right? Like, for instance, Vincent. Wallachia, Abel, he's not just the emperor of Wallachia. He's more than that. You know, Subaru is more than just Rem's hero. You know, like, all of these different things of, like, Tepei's done a very good job of making his characters feel very real and people-like because there's more to them than just the concept of what they are.
It's, Garfield's particularly is another... like a really great callback that, I mean, Tepei just keeps doing these of going back to the From Zero speech in Arc 3's where like Rem's way of pulling Subaru out of that funk is you're only talking about the version of yourself that you see. What about the one that I see? And Garfield gets to have insight. I mean, it's also great that he's able to internalize the way that everyone else sees him and come to understand that, which Subaru does not have the ability to do yet.
His voice is very reliable to because he's simple enough that he doesn't overthink these things. He trusts in the feelings that the people around him have towards him, and it motivates them properly. And that's the reason why, you know, Garfield is truly on the precipice of becoming that hero to replace Reinhardt in the kingdom. You know what I mean? Like the things that he does in this chapter is just so crazy, and it like shows the heroic mentality that he actually has.
Like Garfield, I mean, we can't just gloss over the fact that the anime gave him like the biggest glaze they've given to anyone, right? And
right now
like, hyped him up to maximum potential with the greatest animation the show has done so far. He is someone that over time and as everything goes forward is going to be one of these legendary figures that he has all of these references to.
Yes, exactly. Like he looks up to all of these historical and mythological figures, and also he looks up to all of these people around him in his life. Like Reinhard and Elsa and Kurgan aren't exactly his friends, right? But they're there in the theater too because they've had an impact on him.
Yeah. And it's so good because from the very genesis of the character, he has been the person to say stuff about the myth and the folklore of the world.
Yes.
You know, he has been aspiring to greatness, and he's dreamed of being a great person to help, broaden the persecution of his people, the demi-humans. And he wants to be the champion that everybody can aspire to be, despite all of the hardships that he's been through. I think like that was the core of who he wanted to be his entire life, and he's striving for it very earnestly. A part of this comes at the beginning of this phase, in which Priscilla, this is another thing that we can talk, it's not like a big scene, but it's like Priscilla sees Sphinx and says, your name will never be regarded in the myths, because who are you? You know what I mean? Nobody will remember your name. And here Garfiel has been trying to make his name go down in history, and we see it here. Like, he's doing things out of legend. And Hainkel acknowledges that.
It's because he's not trying, right? It's because he's fighting for who he loves and what he believes in so fiercely that's what's going to make him that. And that's what makes him different from a person like Rowan, who all Rowan wants to do is achieve the Heavenly Sword and probably for all eternity be known as the man who reaches the Heavenly Sword. Why do you think he's so excited in the previous phase when he hears that Hainkel is related to Ride, right? Like, oh, you're related to that guy who achieved the Heavenly Sword. That makes you really cool. Except you're super lame. Get your shit together.
Yeah, he's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference.
He's just being himself is the big thing for me.
Yep. He's trying to lift up everybody else. He's trying to protect everybody else. That's the shield part of his thing. I mean, of course, he's the gorgeous tiger. But, like, he cares most about protecting everybody else so that their dreams can become a reality.
Yes.
And we'll talk a bit more about dreams, because that comes into the arc, the phase later on.
Yeah.
I think that quote that Cessy has rings very true here too. And like these people that are succeeding the most are the people that truly have a dream. Like a beautiful dream that they follow through and don't let, people tarnish that.
Yeah, it's this idea that it's less about ignoring fate and almost choosing your destiny and like wanting to follow through to that.
Yeah,
exactly.
100%. Yeah.
That while Subaru is like actively rejecting anything that like gets laid out in front of him and wants to just do whatever he's doing, almost like in the moment, which is, I mean, his character still has a lot of way to go. Some of the others that we have here, like even Yugard, for example, just have this goal that they want to achieve, but it isn't like an all-consuming thing to them like it is for Rowan. It isn't fate, it's what they want for themselves, what they want to see in the world is probably the better way to put it.
It's like for Subaru, right? Like where Garfiel wants to protect everyone to see their dreams come alive, Subaru wants to be able to reach that point where he can see the fruition of those dreams with all of those people that he knows.
Yes.
And that's why he has to save everyone that he knows himself, because he has to see their dreams and their potential come to life, because that's the kind of person he is, right? Like, it works so well, and it's also why it's perfect that Subaru is Garfiel's hero in particular. Because Garfiel, he doesn't need the badass guy that can kick ass to be his hero. He needs the guy that has all of this love and empathy and desire to never give in regardless of what position he's in, to guide him and let him know he doesn't have to give in himself.
Because that's the strength not spoken of in legend.
Yes.
It's the strength that you see and feel palpably through the people in your life that affect you dearly and personally, perhaps more so than any sort of dragon slaying person could ever hope. What Garfield looks forward to at the end of the day is the idea of, man, will that pink-haired girl like me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these are the things that is truly on his mind. It's not slaying a dragon. You know what I mean?
No, don't get me wrong. He's a history and mythology nerd. So he was like, "Oh my god, I'm fighting a dragon! Yeah!"
Much akin to, or not akin, in spite of his companion here just cowering. It's like, oh my god, I'm fighting a dragon. What am I doing?
And Garfiel's like, oh my god, it's a dragon. It's a real dragon. Yo, you want to throw down?
Yeah, it's so good because this quote comes up beforehand. So it's a quote that he said before. Like, this feels like the payoff to that quote of Raid laughed when he drew a sword against the dragon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
He mentions it again, and it's like, oh yeah, this is something that he's been thinking about since Arc 4. You know what I mean? So this setup from here to now makes so much more sense. Obviously, also in the virtue of him trying to aspire to be like Reinhard. You know, like this. Yeah.
And also him being with Hainkel there, right? Because if we're going to talk about that, we should probably talk a bit about Hainkel here, because
yeah, absolutely.
Like that quote being said, and then what's the quote he says about Reinhard after? I always forget it. It's one he's mentioned again before, even though he was stuck in Sanctuary for a long time. He still knew who Reinhard was, right? And it, like, him hearing Hainkel hearing about his dead ancestor who he doesn't give a shit about, and his son, who in so many ways has hurt him so much, a lot of the reasons because of himself. It's so cool to see Hainkel like really have to grapple these feelings he keeps on avoiding and running away from because Garfiel is here. Like, that's also thematically why Hainkel can't run away from this fight, right? Like, because Garfiel is challenging all of these presumptions Hainkel has, not just about the world, but about himself, I think, in that moment.
And as long as Garfiel has his feet firmly planted on the ground, there is nothing that can stop him.
Mm-hmm.
That is the power that he possesses. And it's something that we see, you know, it's a very thematic thing, which is this idea of as long as he feels like he can stand and fight, Garfield cannot lose. That is, it's not literal what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that is what his power enables him to do.
Yes.
When he is trudging forward in the face of a dragon breathing on him, and he is just marching forward with his, you know, gauntlets raised in front of his face to sock that dragon, you know, watching on as Hainkel, that this is somebody who is willing to challenge and stand. And it kind of shows him that the impossibilities that he perceived is only because of his perception, not because of the reality of the situation.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I've never actually like really considered him to that degree, but even if we look at his history, the two times when Garfield has actively and fully lost his fights, which were against Subaru in the Sanctuary when he goes down to Invisible Providence, and then when Roswell just murders him, are both times when he's been emotionally either devastated
100%.
or
100%.
like fractured here, and isn't willing to fight in that moment. Roswell even says, I probably couldn't have won if I didn't take him by surprise there.
Yeah.
You might be right that so long as Garfield is willing to stand back up, he literally cannot lose.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the theme there. That emotionally, as long as he's not lost hope, he can fight.
And Tepei gives one of my favorite tropes in fiction to Garfiel of taking on a huge power beam and then walking and trudging forward. I don't know why. Visually, in my head, that's just one of my favorite tropes I see in fiction of someone like taking on this huge powerful attack and just slowly walking step by step towards the enemy.
And to make sure that this isn't just, you know, like a thing that I'm saying out of nowhere, it's said many times that the breath of Mesoria is strong enough to destroy the entire capital if Garfield did not block it.
Yeah.
Like this guy is insane. Like, he is one of the strongest characters in the series, I think.
I mean, it took Amelia and Priscilla together to stop the attack against the other city.
Exactly, yeah.
And he's just blocking it by himself. You know what I mean?
When he did this, I genuinely stopped to think of, did somehow Echidna get a hold of one of these legendary weapons that exist in this world and either like melt it down or transform it into the gauntlets that he uses somehow?
Yeah.
But then it keeps like breaking in every fight.
I know it does break
in the background.
But I think one of the things that I had a curiosity about, which I don't think is ever confirmed, but because his blessing is of the earth and Moosebell's right there, I wonder if that enhances his ability somewhat. But that's just a guess.
I think it's possible,
That's
but it could
possible.
also be the inverse where like all the mana of the earth itself is going to Muspel instead of Garfield.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Could.
Yeah.
So it could go either way on that. Not to mention everything that's going on with Araki.
Because that's never mentioned. At first, I thought that was part of it. I was like, oh, maybe he's because like he's throwing buildings at people. You know, it's kind of crazy. You know,
it's just
a long way from throwing Rock Piggy on top of Elsa.
I mean, screw throwing Rock Piggy. He throws Dragon by tail into the fucking sky. Like,
yeah, he does.
He throws it in the sky and he throws it into the wall. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy, man. And Hainkel like sees him get hit like thrice by the dragon, and he is like, "How are you still alive?" And Garfield's like, "I don't know. I guess I just got lucky or whatever." And it's really like one of those things where you're like, "Yeah, he did just get slammed by a dragon 3 times. Like he is just gotten that strong. I mean, we've seen him against Kafma and stuff, but like truly, he." The belief that people have in him when Subaru has in him to fight this dragon, he does not question it. When he goes to the dream and remembers all the encouragement and all the hopes of the people around him in the camp, he knows that he has to be that shield. You know, he has to
trusting me to get it done.
I was about to say it's just so wholesome that he's like, yeah, I have to do this because my captain trusted me to do it. You know, he doesn't. It's like it's not a hesitation of faith. You know, he has full faith that he will complete what his captain believes him to do.
Yep, because I mean, to everyone's knowledge, Subaru is never wrong about what people can do.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens when that illusion crumbles? But
I mean, that's probably where we eventually get to the point of the one future sight from Julius. I'll kill you, Natsuki Subaru.
Yeah, exactly. I also think that it's very interesting because this also makes a point of like people don't really know that Subaru has an authority, you know what I mean?
Well, they do know he has one of greed now.
Yeah, he doesn't have Corleone.
Amelia knows he has an authority because he used it to save her, but beyond that, not much.
They do state early on in this phase, like right at the beginning, oh, your authority of greed, right? But they attribute a lot of his RBD stuff to his authority of greed.
Exactly. And the thing about that is the untrustworthiness that'll come from that revelation that he like, okay, after all this time, he still hasn't trusted us enough to tell us about this. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, of course, we know that he has a taboo on it, right? But like, this is something that could be inferred somehow. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot that he could be doing to try to make people aware of it, you know?
I mean, Roswell's like 2 leaps of logic away from piecing together exactly how his powers work.
Yeah. I think it's something to consider.
And Cessy isn't too far either, as we'll see later.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably jump to Cessylus here now. It's not a bad jumping off point between him, Al, and Yugard. Or we could just even talk about Yugard Valakia here for a minute. I kind of want to
talk about Yugard because he's just so cool.
He is. I was kind of dreading his appearance, thinking, okay, it's just another named character from the stories past that he wants to throw in. But Yugard's kind of fascinating, and there's a lot more to him than, I mean, I guess this is the intention. There's more to him than his fairy tales would lead you to believe.
Exactly, yeah.
I think the idea that this person who was seen as the sort of cruel and vile person, or who had done cruel and vile things at heart, was somebody who wanted to believe in this kindness and this sort of admiration, but he never could be stirred further than Iris had ever stirred him. You know what I mean? Like that presence of just like, how should I explain it? Imagine if there was like a good guy around, right? Like this really like guy who had this very admirable heart, this like wise leader that could have been. But the only thing that happened is somebody took away the one thing that kind of set him away from that path. Like there was just a small fork in the road. You know what I mean? And
the assassin shot Jackie Kennedy instead of JFK.
Yeah, exactly. And that here is exactly what we see. Because like in this fight, Yugard sort of starts to believe once again in, you know, people, you know, in himself, in the idea of growing, you know, like he thought once Iris was dead, there was nothing left for him, you know. He never felt this much excitement and this much admiration for somebody in his life. But he always had this idea that, you know, like the people that he killed, he still felt them, you know, worthy of his praise. You know what I mean? He acknowledged that other people were strong or, you know, capable. He just felt like the world had dealt him such a poor hand that he couldn't help but, you know, incur their wrath. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
woe is me.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, can't you understand my pain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yugard is really cool, and I really appreciate him because he, to me, thematically just amplifies so much from the story, and especially Arc 7 and Arc 8, right? Because not only is Yugard a character we've heard a lot about in myths and fairy tales, so we have this one impression of him, and we get this terrifying impression of him from Yorna/Iris in the previous phase, right? What we actually see here, and what we learn, is Yugard was the strongest Valachian emperor in history. But he wasn't strong because it was his technique. He was strong because someone cursed him. And not only is that like an effective thing, but he was the first Valachian emperor to abolish the divine general system, right? It just like that plays into, so Vincent brings it back. That's their difference, right? And it's so cool. And then you get this other element too of, okay, the hatred and persecution of the Empire. Todd, Halibel. So Halibel coming here to fight Yugard and earning his admiration is so thematically just resonant. Like him coming here and saying, you know, you're a kind, like, because he's a kind man, and he's an inverse of Yorna's soul marriage technique, his curse, right? His curse affects those he loves, which is the inverse. And it's really cool to see that, you know, he's such a complicated and fascinating man. Like, a man who was so strong and so driven to live a life with the person he loved. He gave up on throwing his life away like he determined he would for the betterment of the people around him. But he still loved so many people. He had so much empathy in his heart, very much like Vincent. I understand now why you want to see so much of Yugard in Vincent in particular. But it also, to me, it adds this element too of Yugard is a complicated, loving man, but he also perpetuated genocide, right?
Yeah, of course.
And that adds the element of, like, oh my god, like, the scale of awesome and scale of fucked are just so high, you just don't know what to do with that, right?
It's one of those things when Anakin Skywalker sees Padme die, and then he kills all the younglings and stuff like that. Who is, you know, he did that out of love, you know what I mean? And it's quite the same with Yugard here, I think. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like a sunk cost fallacy with them. It's like, it's already too late to do good, so I may as well just keep going down the path I'm on because it's easier.
But Halibel directly challenges that idea. So at the end there of their fight, when Halibel finally has the thorns start to come out of his chest, it just felt so satisfying to see Halibel be acknowledged by the man who caused not just him but his people so much suffering.
Yeah. That's great.
I imagine that's a huge formulating feeling for Halibel in particular.
It's such a good build from the start of the arc, from Todd's perspective into Halibel's perspective, into Yugard's realization about what he did. And Yugard, you know, like, he never once, when he was fighting Halibel, had any prejudice in his heart against the wolf people. You know what I mean? It was the necessity of it that he felt like he had to. This retribution, you know what I mean? It's not hatred. It's sort of like this idea of, you know, I need to kill anybody who did anything to, you know, Iris, right? Even if they weren't directly involved, they could have been. You know what I mean?
It's also an aspect of the mole people and wolf people got a considerable leg up on doing anything to him if they wanted to continue their fight against him, because his stuff no longer affected them at that point.
Yeah. And another part of that is, like, this fight is really cool because you can see very clearly Yugard start to realize how foolish he was in a way.
Yes.
You know, there was this moment of, like, elation that he was like, my heart is unmovable. You know, I have nothing if I don't have Iris. And then he started to slowly realize that through all this pain that he can't feel, right? So that's the thing. It's not just feel, it's just numbness.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, there was other ways to feel emotional, depth.
Yeah.
Like he felt emotional pain, he felt emotional happiness, but he's numb physically. So it's like, how do you gauge those things? You know what I mean?
So, like, from a choreography perspective, this might be one of the fights I'm most excited to see animated.
It's so exciting the whole time.
Like,
This is a great
it's some of the best writing Teppei has ever done, in my opinion. Genuinely, it's so like clear and succinct what's happening, but it flows so well. And also, the image of Yugard dual wielding the Yang sword and the Fiend sword is so badass. Yeah. Can we just say,
and the Fiend sword is also so badass.
Yes,
I mean, like a sword that cuts anything, and then a sword that cuts only what you want. Yes. You know what I mean? Like. And Halibel's entire thing with like tricking him like a million times with clones and stuff like that. Like the fact that he was able to, like, he's such a strong like emperor, right? Like he talked about before that like he never even had to fight before because everybody would just drop in pain immediately due to the curse.
He never felt the emotions of a warrior, right? Like he never felt like he could grow and become stronger. But in this fight, he does because, and it even tells Halibel, like, you're pretty awesome, like you
you're
solo all of the divine generals from my day.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. Like,
and I love Halibel's responses. Like, that's not really like. He's like, he says something like. Yeah, I figured
it's not
that
really that admirable.
Yeah.
Also,
I thought that was very funny.
The title, like, go ahead.
Is like that would have killed anybody if it wasn't me. You know what I mean?
Yes. I love the title. Halibel calls him by was like Emperor of the Briar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's filled with like conceit and hate, and it's just like, damn, man, it's so cool to see Halibel this way too. This is a side I didn't think I'd ever really truly see of him because he's the admirer, right? So,
and of course, the narration makes a very good parallel, very clear, which is the fact that they both realize and they have both admiration in most of their life, which is odd compared to their contemporaries, right? Like. Most emperors never felt admiration for any of their subjects.
Yeah.
And most warriors of Halibel's level couldn't be this gracious or this, appreciative of the people around them.
We see it. The other warriors at his level here aren't like that at all.
Yeah, like Rowan. Nope. Yeah, it's very clear.
Now, I'm kind of curious, him getting cut by the Fiend sword, right? Does that cut the concept of Yugard Valakia, or does it cut the concept of Yugard Valakia, the risen undead?
It's supposed to cut curses and contracts.
Yeah, it cuts everything, I think, yeah.
So it could either separate it from the spell,
or the curse.
Theoretic, it could separate that curse. It could separate the curse he put on Yorna.
Mm-hmm.
The resolution of that is still to come.
It's still to come, yeah. But like Halibel saying, "I will free you from your curse," now makes a lot of sense because he's going to cut the curse away, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll mention from this section is we get some cool world building about the Mad Prince. Mad Prince mentioned, boys.
I know. Mad Prince keeps on getting mentioned at the northernmost tower.
I'm just saying, yeah.
There he is.
Northernmost tower, and also new thing, one of the 4 strongest. Like I always knew he was like one of the famous members from Gusteco, but I never really conceptualized. Oh yeah, he's the strongest of his nation.
Yeah, well, he's the third or fourth strongest in the world.
Yeah,
I think that got mentioned first in the Remif that we also read about Halibel being like the strongest here compared to like the Mad Prince or Master Swordsman,
I don't know,
or Blue Lightning.
It just never clicked for me that he was held on that same regard. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was more an infamy thing than a power thing.
Well, like, come on, Teppei. He keeps on building this more and more to the point where I'm like, if he doesn't show up by the end of the series, I feel like something's a little bit wrong.
I'll be mad.
I mean, they could just keep making jokes about it. It's like, we have to deal with this because the Mad Prince is planning an invasion. And it just never gets brought up.
Because it's like Halibel's here and Cessy we see and
Reinhard, yeah.
So like the one that we don't know, it seems a little bit strange that we don't know.
It's going to be so
He's
funny.
the Mad Prince because he's mad he didn't get invited to the party.
His name is something Vicious. Is his name not Vicious? It's something I'll regard or something like that. What's his name? I can look it up actually.
It's really funny because I feel like he's boom, Deus Ex Machina, the fourth strongest shows up at the end of the story to help win the fight or something. Like he's just been in prison the entire time, and he walks out. He's like, "Yo guys, I'm here. It's finally me, the Mad Prince you've been built up so much to," and he just gets fucking like obliterated or something.
You know, his name is very weird. It's sort of vague. You know.
Oh, it is vague, isn't it?
Yeah, vague. Adgard is his name.
That's right.
Yeah, I love how the author says, "Well, I don't really believe he'll appear in the main story as of now. It is not impossible for him to emerge in the future." That's the most Tappei thing to write over. He's like, I don't think he'll show up, but
I mean, I'm still holding out hope for the Second Crusade arc. I just think that'd be so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, literally,
I think I'm pretty filled on extra national arcs, taking away from the main story that we've done. Maybe as an EX novel, but
that's why it's an invasion. It's not like they're going to Questeco. Questeco's coming to them. That's my thing.
My actual belief, and this is just I'm throwing a long shot, because Capella operates her Assassin's Guild in Questeco. She's gonna free Vague, and then Vague's gonna come with her to the kingdom.
Or Vague is just her.
Oh my god.
Maybe. I mean, we've talked a lot about Capella's weird things. But yeah. That would be crazy.
And Pandora is also Otto.
Yeah, Pandora is also Otto.
Okay, I mean, that's a joke, but it's not like Capella can't just take the form of someone that would be known as the Mad Prince.
I'm being annoying, but...
Yeah, but, like, we know that Capella... I mean, I think we presume that Capella is a royal from unless she is, as we've said before, perhaps a soul transcribed onto that body.
Yeah, but something like that.
Something fishy.
Who knows?
Because she can shapeshift, so it's like there's like no exact way we know who she actually is.
Should we discuss maybe Madeline and then Balleroy?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, we're gonna discuss the Dragonkin stuff. I mean, that's one of the biggest drops from this phase, if not the arc so far.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's like
okay.
full lore.
You were asking about Volcanica. Well, here's two tiny tidbits of information. Yep. He's isolated and kind of looked down upon by the dragons when they still existed, and almost certainly has a Dragonkin out there.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And
it'd have to be pretty, like, relatively, as in within the last 400 years, recent, because he made the covenant with the kingdom before then.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Mesoria, like, I'm not sure how long she was up there. Madeline, I mean.
I think it wasn't too terribly long.
She mentioned
because they said she was young, right?
Because she has. So the whole point is that it's like the human property. So like she's actually her physical age, I believe, is the point at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. Because like they talk about how like literally, like the nuance of Balleroy's relationship, which we'll get into in a moment, is that he said that he would marry her in the same way a father would say that to like a daughter. You know what I mean? Like that's something that the narration even said, right? Because it's like she is childish, you know, she is like a child, you know. That's like not up for debate, you know.
I mean,
I think one of and there's a lot of nuances like that in ReZero's story of like, okay, they look like a child, but are they actually 400 years old? I'm pretty sure the narration is telling us that she is around the age of her physical body.
Or at least for her race as a Dragonkin, that this is what she effectively, like if an elf takes 110 years to reach the equivalent of 15 years old,
right,
and they're like 40 and they look like they're 7, they're still 7. That's more of what I got from here, because I think she was still up there but alone for a while.
But Madeline in the narration says that she's only been alive for a few years or something like that. Like there was something that was like a handful of years. Like, I don't know if that was like from her perspective 150 years, but I don't think that's what they was implying. I think it was actually the narration saying that it was only a few years.
I think it's the same with elves in this world, where they kind of like reach the bodily maturity in kind of like maybe a similar way. Like they age physically in that way, but like, or they
I can imagine it.
Age in the same vein as humans, as it's mentioned, but they could live for a long period of time. Basically, is how I would say.
Yeah. Another thing about that is the fact that the vessels are all made of mana. For Madeline takes on this human form, which is made out of like a human body, right? But it's also sort of created through mana, right? Like it's a parthenogenesis, right?
Yes.
And so like the dragon has to like shed its body in order to create, or like its soul, I should say. Like they turn into these husks in order to create these dragonkin.
Yeah.
So it's like she's sort of Mesoria, but she's sort of not. You know what I mean? It's like a reincarnation sort of thing.
In a sense, I think it's more close to a parent-child relationship. Yeah, it requires the sacrifice of the parent to exist.
It's like the bloodborne eldritch gods, right? To have a child, you must die.
Yeah. Because it's sort of like reincarnation when you think of it like that. It's like they give their life for the life of somebody else. You know what I mean? But I really like the lore for the dragons this time around. The idea that a lot of the dragons literally were just like so fed up with the things the humans were doing, they were like, we're just gonna leave.
And they flew off into space.
Yeah. Like that's the thing that I was like, oh, I thought they were chased out. No, a lot of them were just bothered and they were just like, no, we don't care. Like
it makes Sekhmet's like push the dragon beyond the Great Waterfall make a little bit more sense with that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It makes sense now. So why are all of these dragons so strange? Because they are weirdo dragons. Like they're just weirdo, like looked down upon by other dragons.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that we can't know in the current state of these dragons. But like Volcanica and Mesoria were weirdos at some point, but their personalities are for all that we know, unknown, because through this process, they've had to shed their personality or their soul.
The closest thing we got is that Volcanica did work with like Reed and we can assume Flugel and Satella at that point in time.
And make the pact.
And made the covenant with it, set up everything else. And I think even like fairly recently, if I'm not mistaken, Volcanica was involved in like the Volgard stuff.
Yep. Well, with Valgren, the evil dragon.
Valgren, yeah. My assumption at this point in time is that the creation of a dragonkin from Volcanica is what triggered the deaths of the royal family. And that's why it was only affecting them, because they were bound by the covenant.
That's an interesting theory.
Say that again.
So that's like we know Madeline is still like only been here like relatively young in some sense, but Volcanica at least within some relatively recent memory was still known to have played like parts of it like not too long ago. Yeah. So I think it's dragonkin that it formed in order to become a husk as it is. I think that is what triggered the deaths of the royal family.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, maybe. I like one of the things that's actually interesting about that, of course, is who's this dragonkin. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And whoever the dragonkin is probably very OP.
Well, I mean, that would make them what, like 5 years old at this point? Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
go ahead. Sorry.
But if like what you're saying is the case, who knows, right? Like, I think that's likely 5 years old. Again, who knows how fast these guys actually develop when they actually have somebody to teach them anything or whatever. But yeah,
true. It just begs the question of like, well, where are they? Who are they? Like, what's all happened to them?
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating to me. Like, this is the one where I immediately started thinking of just, okay, well, Shala must have seen this happen. at least someone either coming and getting them or leaving. But we also know that Volcanica seems to have some ability to transport.
Yeah.
With what happened with Subaru, so who knows?
Yeah. Also, it makes me wonder if there's more of them out there, because this kind of implies that there are.
Yeah.
Because,
or at least that there were, if nothing else.
Yeah, there were, because this is something that's known, a phenomenon that's known. I think like that, coupled with the fact that like sure, there's only going to be like a handful, like a very few amount, right? Because these are eccentrics and monocentrics that would make these dragonkin. But like it does make me wonder, like the dragons that stayed, they would have more influence on the world if they weren't husks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Volcanica was basically ruling a kingdom up until it became a husk.
Yeah.
As far as we can tell.
I'm curious because I feel like I don't know if. See, the thing is, I can see it being a possibility that what caused the death of the royal family was the dragonkin.
Yeah, this is something that. Yeah, go ahead.
But I could also actually theorize something different, because it seems from Volcanica's capabilities, he's perfectly capable of defending the kingdom when it's at a big threat. He's just not. He can't advise and he can't rule anymore. So I don't know if I could actually really time when the Dragon King came out, apart from the past 400 years, right? Because
I mean, Volgren was what, 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah, but like the way, I don't think he responded like in a conscious manner to that. I think that
was that according to the contract, or
the contract? Yeah, because the contract was still working at that point.
Defend the kingdom. Could be.
I just thought that it was two events that
coincide.
Made a lot of sense to be linked to Volcanica that would have happened in the same period of time. That it would shock me if they weren't linked somehow. It could even be the opposite, that the death of the royal family triggered Volcanica to try and do something different to help.
Because that's what I was about to say, and this is my counter to it, which is if this eccentric dragon who has such a huge ego, who wants to be in the politics of humans, right, wanted this influence over humans and seemed happy to be, worshipped and have festivals, worshiping him. Why would he suddenly say, actually, peace out, I want to die, pretty much, for a human to be born? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a thing that he wouldn't do unless there was an exact reason why he needed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just my opinion on it.
It's such cool lore that we got dropped, though. Like, it just even the idea that, like, dragons asexually reproduce because they're just beings of complete mana, right? And they're beyond, like, the typical living understanding of normal living beings is really cool.
Yeah, that and the fact that like they were like they clarified this too, because I think we talked about this before, and I had this question which was just like it gets answered here in the way that I think is funny, which is just like, does that make them like a spirit? And it's like, no, these are supremer than spirits. Like there's the classification is so great that nobody would ever dare consider a creature who is the apex of all living things the same as a spirit, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting.
It also now starts to make me think about the lineage of ground dragons, water dragons, and flying dragons a bit more.
Oh yeah, 100%, right?
Because, like, we learned some cool lore about flying dragons in this phase, where the rider in the ultimate technique with them can combine their ode together.
Yeah.
Which feels closer to, like, capital D Dragon Covenant kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It felt closer to me like a spirit contract than the Dragon Covenant, because the Covenant is meant to last over a bloodline.
That's fair.
Like multiple generations.
This makes me wonder if Volcanica doesn't just want a really hot human wife.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
As a priestess, yeah.
Hey.
He's like, hey.
It's actually all Patricia in disguise. She's the Dragon King.
Show me your best woman, humans, and make them enter a pact with me. like that type of eccentric, right?
Yeah, it's just the ultimate.
The reason why I say that though is because you brought up a good point. Like the bonding of a soul. It's like if a dragon were to do that with a human, right? Like I'm surprised if that themed because like they don't reproduce like literally sexually. But what I mean is that it's just like they might want a companion that's a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
It's the kind of thing of like I'm just like, so yeah, who is this dragonkin? Have we seen them yet? Is also the more important question, I think. Like
I'm gonna go on a wild guess and say no, we have not.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot more obvious if we,
Yeah. But
or like it'd be a lot more suspicious. So there'd be like characters that would be like,
who are you?
yeah, we haven't really like. There's none that I can think of.
Yeah, it's just a cool thing to think about.
They'd have like a crazy design. So that's the reason why I don't think we've seen them.
It's Cataman's daughter that Subaru and Amelia first befriended in the first loop.
It's actually
one of the felt camp people that we haven't seen yet.
I mean, it also just Felt's age fits the timeline. It's entirely possible that
it'd be a thing. She's not a member of the royal family. She's Volcanica's next chosen because
basically a child of the royal family in Volcanica.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think like that part makes me wonder if a lot of the dragons did go past the Great Waterfall. Where are they?
Yeah,
because now I realize now that the husk thing has nothing to do with him being beyond the Great Waterfall. It might have to do with him doing the dragonkin thing. So if that's the case, then what happened to the ones that did go beyond the Great Waterfall?
Are they
the observers?
Off? Maybe.
Yeah, like literally, right?
Yeah, that's one thing. Like, did they land on Earth? Reverse isekai, you know?
Yeah, right. Because that's the only thing that would make sense considering the logic of the world. But then it makes me wonder if like the observers are like, "Hey, you guys stay with us." They might have an army or something that they're amassing. Unless the observers are them, of course, but I don't know. Okay.
Or it's the Lord of the Rings mode. The eagles are coming! It's dragons flying. Hey guys, we're back. We're here to save the day.
Literally. It's not going to be save the day, that's for sure.
Or it's a rumbling situation.
Yeah. It's going to be like, hey, the witches are crazy. Throw these guys at you.
Time to break this all and make it anew. Fix it all up.
Yeah, probably, right?
Reinhard, fulfill your ancestors' thing and go kill all the dragons again. Just not for sandwiches this time.
Oh yeah, funny tidbit. Ride's favorite food is dragon meat. Bro was friends with Volcanica, apparently.
I mean, it's like, it's dragon meat, but we've seen that when a dragon breaks off a part of themselves, it's just an object of pure mana. So he was eating pure mana, and it's how he got so strong. Like, it makes sense that made him so powerful.
Yeah. But it's just kind of wild. It's
truly is.
Tasty dragon. And also that being a contributing factor in why they leave too is quite funny. It's like, and also why the Dragon King came about in the first place, right? Because it's like, oh, if we're the ultimate being and we're being killed by this thing, does that mean we have to change and evolve?
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
Interesting.
Interesting. It also makes me wonder, I mean, this is what we're talking about, but like, Puck being the beast of the end, like, to destroy the world? Huh. Just something I was thinking about, like,
well, he says destroy the world, but it would effectively just be ending all life on it. Reinhardt destroyed the world with his swing and then remade it, supposedly.
Yes. That's the Observer's will, too. So, interesting. If the Observers think that the world can't go on, do they just, like, say, Reinhardt, press the reset button?
I'm guessing.
On the topic of sword and observers, is what the sword deems worthy deemed by the observers or the world? Because those are two different things.
That's a question.
Maybe it's by like Volcanica's understanding of it, if it's like
because it's blessed
forged from them or something. Yeah.
It's blessed by, it's scratched by his claws or something to that degree.
And if the Fiend sword, this is just a random thought, something like the Fiend sword, like a concept or whatever, could it like sever the hold of that sword on, or like the nature of the contract or blessings? I don't know.
I bet it could separate a divine protection off of somebody.
Yeah.
That might be how it comes back into play and Reinhardt loses the divine protection of the sword stand at some point.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Interesting.
It could also be a thing too of we mentioned that the dragon sword reed is made from dragon scratches. Could it be a thing where it's like a nail from Volcanica again? Like it
that
was
is
forged through that.
fully my suspicion of what exactly that sword is.
And that's
It also
why
makes
it's just so insane.
It also makes sense why he had to draw it against Cessy if that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
Because and it's a stalemate, because if he does get sliced with the Fiend sword, like sure, like, oh, I'll just revive. Well, no, you won't. Because that sword severs everything. So I don't know.
I feel like Cessy wouldn't even use it with intent to kill Reinhardt just to make him not be the Sword Saint anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's the end goal. That has to be, right?
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you're dodging all my attacks, so I'll hit your ability to dodge my attacks. And then he separates it off.
Now I think about it, there's a Hainkel and Cessy have already met. There's a possibility they could have a conversation about this at some point.
Maybe. I mean, I think Heinkel's primary focus is still not precisely that. I just think it's something that he would be wanting to happen.
His primary goal is to get the blood of the dragon to heal Luan.
Save his wife.
Could the Fiend Sword help his wife?
I think maybe. It depends on like what causes it.
What causes it exactly?
If it's a curse, then yeah. But if it's something that's already happened to her,
I wouldn't be surprised if like the idea of the sword is also like violent, so it can only sever things. It can't restore things. It can knit things together. So like,
because like Groovy was talking about how it's like bloodthirsty and furious and angry and spews bloodlust and hatred.
I don't think it can heal. I think
it's a very Sith weapon.
Yeah, very much. Very Sith coded, you're right.
And Groovy managed to make it into katana just for...
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to force you into this shape for Cessy's amusement.
And that's
so funny.
It's why it's so funny to me that it runs away from him more than anyone else, because it just hates him so much. And that it severed the concept of smell on itself to him. That's why I'm talking more about it severing more than just contracts and stuff like that, because it severed the concept of smell on itself.
Yeah.
So like it's conceptual like slashing. It's not just a specific curse or something like that, from what I understand. Like it's actual like, oh, concept, I cut concept on this thing to get rid.
Yep. That's why it's cut, not repair either.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
exactly.
I think that's the reason why the 10 divine swords or whatever, divine weapons, blades, I don't know what they called it.
10
but like what one of them probably has something to do with repairing things. Like I think that's probable, but like this one obviously doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with destroying things. So interesting.
Cool lore. Made me very happy to read, I won't lie. My jaw dropped. I was like, wait, I'm actually getting the dragon lore? This is crazy.
And this, exactly. This is very concrete. This is like probably some of the most concrete lore we've gotten. I mean, sure, it doesn't give the full history of how dragons, exactly what happened or exactly what dragons are, exactly where they are now. But like knowing almost everything else is good. This is like the type of thing that you'd read in a textbook in the ReZero world, right? So like that's enough, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's also the kind of... I'm so mad at Tay. I know he can't for story reasons, but him just being like, and Volcanica is another story that we will not be talking about today.
Yeah, because obviously later we'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, no, you fuck, nah!
When Volcanica's protection is broken, not only does the royal selection end, but also the kingdom's in danger.
I feel like it's all going to be revealed in Reinhardt's name chapter.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
That's probably also true. Yeah. Also think, with that in mind, I'm going to say something bold. I think the royal selection is going to come to an end very soon. In the next 2 arcs.
Because it's not the end game of the story?
Yep. I think that's right. Because
I think it's going to end in what will now be Arc 12 instead of 13. So I think we still got a bit of time.
Yeah. I think it could end in Arc... we're in Arc 9 now.
Yeah.
I think in Arc 10 or 11, my opinion. Because my opinion is that Volcano needs to die for things to happen.
for things to get spicy.
Yeah, the contract to end. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like our group is actually that far away from being able to take it out.
No.
If Garfiel is able to like 1v1 a heavily controlled Dragon Husk, then a Dragon Husk on its own is
And just consider what Sphinx is able to do here, right?
Oh
if
yeah.
that's the case, if people like that exist, and what we've seen of Halibel and all these people, if all this is the case, then there are characters right now that could kill Volcanica if they wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Reinhardt probably already can.
Yeah, well, obviously, but he wouldn't, right? So, like, the truth is, there's probably like villains lurking in the background that are going to do it.
Villain being Roswell.
Yeah, well, Roswell exactly wants to, so it's possible. It's possible. I mean, as soon as that Volcanica shows his face, Roswell's going to kill him somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone's going to be happy for a moment, or at least Hainkel will be.
And you know, I wasn't thinking we are going to have too many big reveals, but we'll talk about some Cessy and Arakia stuff and Owl stuff, and then big reveals.
Yeah, the biggest one.
The biggest reveals.
But I really like this chapter with Cessy, Arakia, and Alda. It's really long, but it's really entertaining.
Cessy is really growing on me as a character. Like, he's very much progressing from like the annoying I don't want to read because I don't know what's going on with him and it just seems like nonsense to I now understand his nonsense a little better, so now it makes it way more entertaining.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think like one of the things about his nonsense now throughout this thing is that we now see that it's been tempered so much by the loss of his memories that him as a person is a lot more admirable when you realize who he actually is.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you recall, like, sure, he's still annoying, right? Like that's part of his character. But like he has a very like clear and I would say like very lucid, like sure, it's very dreamlike in the way that he kind of like interprets like, oh, I'm the hero of the story or whatever. But like he has this very like more romantic rather than like obsessive, you know, like view on things than I think I was aware of. Because before I was kind of like, you know, I'm just gonna fight the best thing and I'm gung ho about it, and that's really all I care about. Here it feels like he has a more narrative minded aspect here. Like he's very appreciative and very careful about like what he's doing here. You know what I mean? And he also like is doing it on his own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's he doesn't care about anybody's expectations here. He's quieting out the audience as he says in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like that sort of like conviction is something I think is very admirable actually, because like all of the things that he's done thus far has been not evil. Of course, he sees himself as the hero, right? So like that's obvious. But like at the end of the day, like you can't help but like even though it's like you'd roll your eyes at it at the end, especially if you're somebody that like is like, oh sure, thanks for saving me. But like he still does. You know what I mean? Even if he boasts about it, there's no doubt that the things that he does is good. You know what I mean?
I mean, most of the time. He is also just a sociopathic monster that Vincent can point where he needs to point, at least as an adult.
Right.
And just go and deal with this problem.
But I think like the nuance here that I kind of got was that he is starting to respect through Chisha's like machinations here. I think he's learning that like he is respecting other people more. You know what I mean?
Especially,
and I think that's something that we see come through here, where he talks about the dreams that he's trying to help Arakia kind of formulate. You know,
it's like he's grouped like Subaru, Chisha, and Vincent into these people that, you know, these aren't just side characters. These are my party. Like one of them's the Lancer, you know, one of them's the priestess or whatever.
Because he's
slotting them into roles just as Subaru and everyone else is doing subconsciously to themselves as well.
Yeah. He's very honest about it, you know, when you're at the level that he is. And I think like we also can very sympathetically see through, you know, Rowan just what he's been through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like And it again, right? We're meant to see it admirable, very obviously, because he's denying the will of the observers actively. Like he hears their like chants and telling him what to do, and he's saying, "No, I know what to do." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like all the squares and circles that are like, blah, 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 blah. That's the observer saying, "Do this, do that, do this," and he's like, "No, I'm doing what I want to do."
And they're just along for the ride.
Yep.
Yeah. I also love that the climax of this chapter is Al dies 12,000 times before he understands what his role is supposed to be on the stage.
Yeah,
right?
But Cessy isn't changing anything because he's just waiting for Al to do the correct
right
thing.
Yeah.
And I love Al here in general because it had been set up his care for Arakia.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot, there's a quote about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, this woman is more exceptional than I'll ever be, and I need to see her flourish." Like this is a feeling from Al this is a perspective from Al that we haven't gotten from any other character besides Subaru and Priscilla. So like seeing this level of care from him is like rare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty much only to Schultz outside of Priscilla that we've seen like anything towards really of like actual affection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when he's cutting through his apathy, which is very noticeable because of how apathetic of a person he is.
Well, it's that they're important to Priscilla, and that's what's important to him.
Yeah.
True. And Araki is also important to Priscilla, and he knows that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a very pure reason to care, really, is it? Maybe.
I mean,
well,
to an extent.
He chose the one thing that he can save, and he's deciding to save it beyond all. It's the disciple of greed sort of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Which is almost certainly exactly what he is.
Yeah. As we talked about in the previous podcast.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's very obvious that is exactly is that he says, "I care about the princess," and that's all he ever talks about. I mean, in the recent episode of the anime, that is also the thing that he talks about when he's confronted with Capella. You know, he's like,
mm-hmm.
You know, I only fear about what the princess will do if I don't listen to what she says. You know, like that's all he cares about.
So leads you to wonder where it's going.
Yeah.
With Al needing to die 12,000 times before he does what Cessy wants, it is heavily implying here that Cessy is fully aware that he and Subaru have like the ability to loop with this, or at least in some regard as well. At least that was how I was reading. I
think it's the Stargazers like idea that they can't manipulate these people. You know what I mean? They can't account for it. I wonder if that's also part of the screaming that the Stargazer or the observers are doing to him. They're like, I can't tell what this guy's doing because it's an anomaly, right? There's like as Sphinx says that Subaru is the anomaly here. Like in a similar vein, Al is also that anomaly. Like we've seen that in the idea of the black-haired man coming to Vlakia. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that sort of. They're both anomalous people because of their authorities. You know.
What I will say is I didn't really directly see it as him almost seeing, like, almost understanding that it was happening so much as that he was seeing all of these possibilities in his mind and how he was modifying his body, like the parameters he was setting for himself, because he has control over his body to that degree, that he was seeing all of those potential things he could have done. And because he has that wisdom and understanding of the world, to him, he can then see when someone like Ao or Subaru has that sort of stuff that something fishy is going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about this fight is that like how crazy the situation's gotten, right?
Yeah.
Where like Arakia's fight here is like she is a huge storm of energy that nothing could really survive in. And like she's shooting lasers like at him, and he is like comparing it to Cat's Cradle, and he's like dodging them through the Cat's Cradle, like lessons that Subaru taught him.
Yeah.
Yep. And I thought that was a very funny and clever way of visualizing it, you know. But her design with all the spikes coming out of her and stuff like that, or like all this, like the stones, looks really cool.
It does.
And like the idea, this is another thing by identity. Arkia's identity has been a huge theme of her character this entire time, but like she's starting to lose it to like everything. Like finally she's starting to slip through, except for the few feelings that she still has and that she's still holding on to. You know what I mean? And she's starting to realize that she doesn't want to lose all of her, all of what she has.
And let herself be consumed by what she is consumed.
Yeah, and even all of the stuff outside of Princess too, right? Like her acknowledging, oh, there are these things that I care about outside of the Princess.
Yeah.
Like, I actually really like Chisha. Chisha reliably for a lot of the Divine Generals is a figure of positivity for them, right? Like,
yeah, her reflection on all these people. And I love how like goes to every Divine General and something about Todd too. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was quite funny. Yeah. The only person who will remember Todd apart from Katya and Jamal.
Yeah,
if she survives all of this. Doesn't seem like she's in a great place at the moment.
She's not. It's more like
she'll survive.
But the whole thing of like her asking Cessy to kill her, and that's what triggers Cessy to get annoyed and then recover his memories and have a whole conversation with Chisha that was surprisingly really deep and wholesome. Like,
this is what I was talking about. Like that memory moment and him being activated by Arcarian saying just to kill him. Like, sure, he's defying fate and he's defying the will of the observers, who probably says, "Yeah, just kill it. Kill her." Right? And like that sort of idea that he is saving her from herself, or like he's giving her an opportunity by defying fate. You know what I mean? I think that's compelling to me as like a person. Like I that's why we said we don't respect all the people who are stargazers. Cessy's Stargazer, and look what he can do.
Yeah. And man, the way it's written, that because of all of this and because of the dreamlikeness of all of that, he could draw the dream sword. It's such a cool reveal, because we've all this entire time we've been wondering, where is it? Like, even Olbart is like, I'm trying to look for it, but I never know where he hid that thing.
It also gives more character to the Dragon Sword raid, and the fact that all these swords have their own personality.
Yeah, they're sentient weapons.
Yeah, and they can only be drawn when they're needed or when they qualify a condition.
Yeah,
I think that's interesting. I like that. And it gives more reason for why Dragon Sword raids like that.
Also makes the Yang Sword very ruthless and mean.
Yeah. It always
it's also
wants a
very
session,
loyal.
Yeah.
Though, compared to like the other ones, that it does exactly what the user wants.
It does.
And nothing else.
But it's also
that's by nature
of the Imperial selection, right?
Yeah.
So.
But when you really think about it, that's also by the nature of what the sword actually does. It knows exactly what the unit wants to cut. So it'll always be there for you. You know what I mean?
It's so cool.
But yeah, I thought it was very compelling. I think the idea of this being the fight between Cessylus, I thought it was going to be kind of boring, or like I wasn't going to be invested in it. But I actually appreciated the perspective that Cessylus kind of gained through this fight.
I also really like that it's built upon a lot of the other chapters where we've seen a bit of narration from him, from his perspective. Where it's like, I'm a Stargazer, I'm this, I'm that. No, Cecilia Segment is Cecilia Segment, and that's all he is. That's all you can define him as.
Yep. I think that's a great start. And I think it pays off the theme of like, this character was this. And now it's like, no. Cecilia Segment is just Cecilia Segment.
Yeah.
I like that subversion. It's good.
It's especially because we can kind of move on to this big aspect of it. Sphinx is no longer Sphinx, but is now the Witch of Greed. I was in the call when that was happening with Wolf, but I mean, Gold, how was like your just reaction to her arrival here and what happened?
Yeah, it is probably one of the best cliffhangers of the series in terms of like volume cliffhangers. Like, of course, it gives you so much. Like, it's one of those things where it's like this character now, Echidna, is just so important to the point of like it blows my mind that there's like 4 iterations of her that exist.
Yeah.
Right now in the world. And it's like, when will this witch stop? When will she stop?
What's her fingers and all the pies?
Yeah, it just shows of just how involved she's been with literally every part of the story that it somehow ties back to her.
It also gives me pretty much confirmation that Al is Echidna.
She's Sensei. I mean, it's not a hard guesstimate.
Yeah, obviously. But like the fact that it's here now, Al's gonna be able to see her and be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
I'm pretty much guarantee that. But like the thing here is that it's just like it's so smart, but it's also like, damn, Sphinx this entire time. I mean, is just another pawn in Echidna's plans.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
She's been like the way that's described, and something that we were talking before, like what is the soul? What part is it? And it's like, oh yeah, you can replicate people's souls, but it still isn't complete unless you have the vessel that's the exact same. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's that, or like even if you replicate someone, you aren't able to like really copy the soul. Like it takes an understanding and like a difference of who you are to embody that.
It's something deeper, which is why we see all of the experimentations she's done on all of these Earth vessels, right? And Olbart's like, oh my god, this is so much deeper than even my stuff. He's like almost terrified and like almost like offended by it, which is really interesting. You don't think Olbart of all people would hold something sacred, right? But even he's like, this is too much. This is beyond what I do, right? Like, it's like it's terrifying.
I think like there is no way in my mind that this can allow to stay as is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
That's just my opinion. Like I think Sphinx has to be defeated here, even though she's now Echidna, right? Like,
well, just to put this label on it, she is now the Witch of Greed.
Yeah, the Witch of Greed.
Not necessarily Echidna.
Yeah, I know, yes. But like,
otherwise Roswell wins.
Yeah, exactly. This is the reason why Roswell's also here and all this stuff, because they have to be like, "Oh, that's my sensei.
It's not actually my sensei."
And then Beatrice sees it, and then he sees it, and everyone sees it, and they're like, "Okay, I know how to defeat it." Right? Like all is going to be part of it.
If the appearance of Echidna versus the Witch of Greed is enough that Amelia and Subaru don't recognize her, like on first sight, Beatrice probably wouldn't either. Like, why do you look so similar to my mother?
Yeah. But like, doubtlessly, the soul is the same. Another thing is, you're right. The face of Echidna is different than the face of the Witch of Greed. I know that's the case because of the. Hiya! Oh, that doesn't look like you.
Who's this person?
Who is this?
Only 5 years different or whatever. Like 18 versus mid-20s.
Wow, motherhood really did change you physically.
Yeah.
But like, there's no way that they don't know that they're the same person. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, Subaru's going to be able to tell.
Yeah, exactly, right?
But it's the thing too, right? If everyone's going to have different reactions, Subaru, I think, is going to be very angry that it's like, oh, it's you again doing your stupid Witch of Greed machination shit.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, Echidna's literally around Anastasia's neck right now. Like, there's so many connections that are still there. You know what I mean?
It's going to be Echidna's there with Anastasia, but then thinking of it, right? Like, Roswell and Beatrice, when they realize, they're going to be angry too because that's not their mother or teacher.
They already know Ryuzu's. That's Ryuzu's clone, right?
Yeah.
And Roswell already killed.
Yeah, exactly. So Roswell is still going to be angry, and he's probably going to be shocked when he sees something that's even close to her. I think
this is a pale imitation of my teacher. How dare you wear her face?
100%.
But Al might react differently, right? Especially if our theories about him are true, because that's going to be the Echidna he knows, right?
Yeah, that's the one that Echidna
he knows.
If you're right, that Al, as well as Subaru and Amelia, and possibly Garfiel are all like more aware of.
Yes.
And this is the reason why I said that Echidna probably survived the encounter with Hector, because how else would you train Al? You know what I mean?
Well, I think Al was
before
in this case,
family.
it would be like in the graveyard, similar to what.
Yeah, but wouldn't that mean that would have been because the last Echidna that they met there would have been no time for the witch agreed to exist if it weren't, unless it's in the graveyard. But
the Witch of Greed that Subaru and Amelia meet, I think, is a copy that she made of herself
at that time,
years before she died.
Yeah, it'll be a thing of, well, that's the one Al knows, because I feel like it again. If our thing about him being once Flugel was right, then they probably separated ways and she changed.
Yeah, and this also, I mean, that theory also kind of goes into this as well.
Yeah,
which is the fact that he is incomplete as well in terms of like turning into Flugel is his goal that he's had, but he's like scarred and maimed, and he's like gone through whatever he had to go through, right, to get to this point. Yeah. And then I don't know, maybe Pandora did something like your Aldebaran, your memories are gone, whatever. Who knows?
Al could also have been a student of Echidna before Roswell.
It's plausible.
Yeah,
I think like the fact that Echidna has had so many different schemes. Like she created Buck, she created this scarf, she created the sanctuary, she created media, she created Karagi, she created all the Ryuzu clones, she created Beatrice for whatever reason. She there's no end to it.
She's the derivative of the witch cult gospels as well.
yeah. She
that's
her
the
source of them, because her book got copied poorly into the gospels.
Yeah,
she copied all the souls of all the other witches.
I would not be surprised if she also had a hand in Ode Lagna in some way.
I mean,
possibly.
The thing about Ode Lagna is that it, in my opinion, it was created in response to authority users existing in the world. Like the ideas of blessings, because that's confirmed pretty much. The blessings didn't exist until the witches existed. It's a countermeasure to them. So the conscious Ode Lagna probably was a defense mechanism against people who were trying to defy the will of the observers or whatever.
I always thought it was a defense mechanism that activated when the world got half of it eaten, rather than the witches necessarily being a thing. But
I've always understood it as just a fundamental aspect. Like, it's just always been there as long as the world has been there.
So like we've got three different possible ideas, but I think all of those could be true, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought spirits kind of were those trends, because like the idea of blessings not existing until a certain point in time makes me wonder, like, there wasn't a library, right? There wasn't anything like this. There wasn't
Flugel built the tower.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, exactly.
So that library couldn't have existed before him.
Yeah.
So like people that tapped into Ode Lagna and gave it consciousness or whatever might have been the sage back in the day. Who knows?
Or it's just gained consciousness over everyone's souls and memories being added to it over time. And like the library is just copying what gets added to it.
It's a soup.
Or it started stopping things from getting added to it and instead.
But the idea of the observers having some will over that seems likely.
To some degree. Like they can do something. Ode Lagna is another aspect of it. It's like pieces of a triangle that we don't have the sides yet.
Yeah. It's like
of like which direction the arrows are pointing.
The holy trinity of ReZero. Yeah,
because it's like
cosmology.
That's the mechanism by how the world exists and perpetuates itself, and life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Soul, but
it's
the observers are the people that gently nudge from the distance, right? Because they're observing up there. So maybe it's like the kind of thing of like, we could gently nudge it a little bit in this way to what we want, rather than a full direct control.
And the only people that have direct control above us are people with authorities. And to make yourself fully compatible, you have to have the name of stars, because you are then beside us in a way, is the way that I see it, right? Like, if the observers are outside the world, right, in the sky, let's say, then, or like outside this dimension, let's say, right, then the stars are also approximate to them and are capable of wielding the things that oppose them.
Begs the question on how Echidna brought one down before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Alshario, right? Like Alshario is probably one of the strongest magic we've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
Like, and she might just do it again.
Just
She
fucking
might
do it again.
Well, but then it will talk about like when that happens, what does it mean, right? Like you bring down, say, Capella, the star Capella, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that those stars aren't in this sky. Is that Subaru can't find his own stars up there. He remembers what they're supposed to look like, but no one else can recognize what he's showing.
Yeah.
But they're all names of people here, right?
Well, yeah, the people here are named after stars from the real world.
Yeah, but
not
they aren't in the
from
night
their
sky,
own sky.
right?
Not from their own
They
sky.
aren't. They're not. No.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing of see if you can find Subaru up in the sky in the like Memory Snow OVA. It's like, well, it's not there. Like
What
his star cluster isn't there.
What if instead of like this might not make sense because we have a presumption that the fucking what's it called El Shamak or whatever, like the Shamak transport Subaru,
yeah
into this world. What if it was also had to do with like El Shario, right? Because El Shario might be the way to bring a name into the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
It has some credence to it.
Now it now makes me realize why it's just another reason why Echidna would be fascinated with Subaru. Oh, you have a star name.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, she knows this.
That's definitely a thing in her Tome of Wisdom that was like fucking highlighted, right?
Yeah, she knows everything. So like that's something that she knows. Like no doubt that she has all these answers that we don't have.
Oh, you were just like that old student of mine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she probably went on like she was like, "Oh, who's this Alec Hosh guy?" And she probably went on, like making Kararagi with him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was something that she definitely did in the past. So I don't know. It's interesting.
But in terms of like the actual fight against Sphinx herself, there's some crazy stuff that happens in the moments, right? Like,
oh yeah, that whole all happens too.
Yeah.
Like we get a Subaru revealing that he's died a few times already, and that we just are accepting that happened and moving on.
I mean, but the loop they do show where he does it and Vincent starts cussing him out and cursing him for giving up, despite telling him not to do so, was so gut-wrenching to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it shows the childishness that he still has. I think what we're going to see very clearly is how Subaru's still not progressed in this childish form. And also, like, his perception, what's going to happen is that he still he's not aware yet. Because he's being very greedy here. Again, where he's like, if everybody doesn't survive, then I've lost against the Empire. Like that's in his mind. The narration's like
and against Roswell.
Yeah. It's his game over.
Mm-hmm. And like the idea here is very clearly like he is going to be eventually humbled by this mentality.
Yeah, he's still, despite having come out of the situation on the island, he still hasn't fully moved away from the immature mentality of abusing the power again.
And you know what this kind of parallels to? It parallels with Al.
Yeah.
And it's going to come to a head eventually where Subaru's realizing that he's becoming more and more like Al. You know what I mean?
More jaded,
he's
more willing.
Also abusing it the way that Echidna was suggesting he use it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Which is not the path that Subaru chose to take.
And when you think about it, if Echidna knows this, and then like maybe not this Echidna because she does have the tone of wisdom, I don't know, but like if Echidna knows this, and then sees the reset, she's gonna be like, "Oh, nice reset, dude."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, this is also like not necessarily the same amount of memories as the one that has met Subaru and Amelia.
Yeah,
because that specific one is up playing D&D with her as Omega somewhere else.
That's why I mean, like, there's 4 of them that exist right now in the is like, or like 3 at least, but like it's
3.5 by counting Scarf Donna.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So like right now it's kind of crazy that there's so many that exist. That's why you have to kill this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to go. It does. Like from an actual perspective, has to be a temporary threat, right? Like
This one's a problem.
Yeah.
This one is a problem, but it's also like if there's 3 echidna that exist, finished. It is just finished. Especially this one. This one's evil, like pure evil. Like the one that's traveling with all the witches has a fondness for her fellow sisters, you know what I mean? Or witch sisters and stuff like that. And also some perspective given from Subaru, maybe. But like it's not like the pure evil echidna.
That one is still one that exists out of literally just to satisfy curiosity and is just going to go around and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one that has an actual active malicious goal that she is attempting to accomplish.
Like that's the one that cried after seeing Amelia. That's the one.
Yeah, it's like, I hate you so much, you dumb bitch.
Yeah.
And also like the one that's like, I don't want you to believe that I'm the only witch that was bad to the core to the very end, you know? Like that's the echidna that you can at least talk to, you know what I mean? This is the echidna that's like, I'm just going to do everything for the world, the sake of knowledge. I don't care how cruel it is. I don't care how evil it is. You know what I mean?
Well, this one is also like, if this is still like, I'm going to fulfill my purpose now. It's like, it's Sphinx coming into, I'm no longer acting to do what Echidna created me to do. I'm now doing what I want to do. So she finally has her own goal.
And also Sphinx's thing is like, she's felt incomplete her entire life. Now that she feels complete, she feels like she can enact exactly what she wanted, which is retribution against everybody, pretty much. Like, her empty existence, she wants to feel the extent of it, you know what I mean? So she's going to she's undead still, but she's going to do whatever it takes to reach that height, you know what I mean? The height that she feels like she could never reach.
Let me ask you this, because you are proposing that she is still undead here. Do you think that there's only one of her right now?
No. I think the only way that we're going to beat her is if we stop whatever she's doing with the magic. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's like Archaea being unconscious now probably helps. So maybe, but like maybe she can't make any more now. That could be it. So yeah, maybe it's the last one.
I feel like she's kind of lost her replicating thing, maybe, because it's harder for her to maybe like divide the concept of herself now she knows what she is.
Well, there's like a limited amount, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's also a thing of like, I don't know if she'd want to do that now, maybe, but it's really interesting too, because like the mechanism.
I was gonna say 100 echidnas, GG.
Yeah, it's over. It's Joe over. It's really interesting the mechanism of how this comes about though, because Vincent draws the Yangtze, baby.
Heck yeah, my dude. I mean, everyone, hats off over your heart, Jamal running into the battle, my man,
and him being loot stuck too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, what's gonna happen to my boy?
I salute you, you crazy motherfucker.
Yeah.
He protected his emperor, you know? I'm glad.
Also,
go
ahead.
I think that, like, the fact that, you know, he draws a sword and then, like, he cuts he's like, oh, I'm attacking you, Sphinx, and then it becomes, I'm no longer Sphinx, is a very smart and clever way of doing it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I have to go through everything and find a way out of this, and the way out of this is to not be me anymore. And to not be me anymore is to understand a different concept of soul, which then physically transforms her. Because we know that it's not even just having like the memories inside of you that's going to make you different, because otherwise Omega would look like Echidna already.
Yeah, it's the ode and stuff too, right?
Yeah, this is like a full change in perception of who she is, like on a deep fundamental level, not just her possession.
She's changed the blueprint of her body by doing it, which is insane.
She's literally like clicking, dragging her soul into the right dimensions, you know?
Literally. It's terrifying. But that also begs a thing of like, she now has a greater understanding maybe of the soul than even the Echidna of before did. The
Well,
Witcher did.
She has to, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to do it.
But that also means, with this knowledge, what is it she could potentially do? Especially now she's she is the way she is. What kind of fucked up experiments could she do on Priscilla, for instance? Right? Like,
I mean, she's got her chained up in a room somewhere that Obart couldn't find.
The soul marriage technique. If I had her understanding of this stuff and I was as malevolent as her, I would try to literally parasitically transfer my being into her to have the soul marriage technique, but also be Echidna.
We talked about it before, but like the idea of this being a completed version of what Echidna was truly searching for this entire time means that when Echidna learns this, or when whoever learns this, is here, sees this as a possibility, anybody malicious enough will be able to use this to their advantage. You know what I mean? Or capable,
Mm-hmm.
They'll be like, oh, this is the way to resurrect somebody. 1, this is how to resurrect somebody. 2, this is how to do it successfully. And 3, this is how to successfully transcribe a soul. It's full resurrection.
I mean, if Phoenix hears about this, do you think he'd try something drastic to get Thoria back?
I do.
I mean, I think that's already like the question of Felix on it. When does he decide to use his version of the sacrament of the immortal king
like his
to create an immortal king?
His water flavor of that, right?
I think at this point with this arc, it almost guarantees that Thoria is going to be resurrected by Felix in the story later on, especially when Capella comes back to try to take it from Felt.
If Crucius is eaten too, what is that going to do to him?
Yeah.
Or could they use this to undo gluttony in some regard? Like have a deeper understanding of like this is able to bring people back from a state that shouldn't be able to exist by a manipulation of the soul.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Like, could Felix repair Crucius' soul in order to give her memories back?
Part of it, yeah.
Because if water is the manipulation of life force, soul and the ode is also life force too, right? So...
And like Felix's magic is a bit different too, so realms of healing that he can do that has to require this. Yeah. Like all he's missing is, because the quote in the trial is, the soul won't take, right? Or whatever it is.
The soul won't take hold.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that he doesn't understand. So once he understands that, like he could do this perfectly. Perfect resurrection, perfect healing.
Also, the moment where Vincent does this, where he draws the Yang sword, and he's like, you underestimated the stratagems of my 2 strategists, is so cool, where it's just like, oh yeah, Chisha, but also Subaru at the same time. It's like, him praising them both was just so satisfying to read.
Yeah. Because this is Sphinx is reflecting on Valga and Libra of Fermi, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's her 2 strategists. And they're both like, oh, this is my strategist that failed me, and here's the strategists that are winning right now. Yeah. I think that's clever.
I think that's like all the major points I wanted to hit for this phase. Did you 2 have anything else you wanted to go over and cover in this one? There's a lot of lore, but that lore takes up a lot of time of the phase as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, but next time is going to be the finale, huh?
Sure will.
Oh wait, is it the finale next time, or is it the finale after that next time?
We just read phase 4, and phase 5 is the end.
No way.
Yeah, next next recording is the end of Arc 8.
And then Arc 9.
And then Arc 9.
Yup. And then Arc 9.
Guys, what the heck? We're almost there.
We're almost caught up, finally.
Our stars are
the
good.
First chapter of the next phase is what I was wondering if got hit or not. Okay, never mind. On like one other thing I just remembered, but it's fine. We're good.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for coming along to this amazing episode of the ReZero podcast. We're almost finished with Arc 8. Can you believe it? We've almost caught up. We almost did it.
Our purpose is almost
done
fulfilled.
it, guys. We've almost done it.
We've almost reached our purpose.
Yeah, our purpose is almost fulfilled.
So with that, have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are, and goodbye!
Bye-bye.
Bye.